Picture this. A 49-year-old woman trapped in an abusive marriage meets a 24-year-old ex-convict looking for a fresh start. His interest in her makes her feel like fate is giving them both a second chance. But the closer they grow, the clearer it becomes that something dark is looming, and their connection is just a ticking time bomb. This is Out of the Blues, and it's about to get brutal. The story begins with a young man named Connor jogging along the beach early in the day. As he runs, his attention is suddenly drawn to a woman named Marilyn who has come to the shore for a swim. The moment Connor notices her, he is instantly captivated by her beauty. He walks up to her and starts a conversation. Although Marilyn is obviously older than him, her beauty is still visible as she warmly smiles at Connor. Having already noticed him too, they strike up a casual conversation. Connor explains that he works at a library and comes to the beach every day for his runs. Marilyn reveals that she is married and has a stepdaughter. When Connor mentions he has never seen her there before, Marilyn explains that she recently moved to the area and enjoys spending time near the sea. After a short conversation, Marilyn tells him she needs to head back home to her family. Connor watches her walk away, still clearly unable to take his eyes off her, as he is already feeling drawn toward her. The next day, Connor is at work in the library when Marilyn walks in. He is intrigued by her presence once more, and they start talking. That is when Connor notices a mark on Marilyn's face and asks what happened. While trying to hide the bruise, Marilyn tells him she got home late the other day because she was talking to him and her husband got angry.
I just took too much time talking to you and I was late getting home.
Hearing this, Connor immediately realizes Marilyn is being abused by her husband. He apologizes for being the reason, as he blamed himself for keeping her late. But Marilyn brushes it off and tells him this kind of thing happens in marriages. She asks Connor to show her the section for crime books. After choosing a book, Marilyn meets with Connor again to register and insists on paying him for his time and service. When she forces the cash into his hand and leaves, Connor sees that Marilyn has written her phone number on it. That is when Connor understands that Marilyn is interested in him too. The following day, Connor goes to a cafe to meet up with a man named Jock, who we learn is a probation officer. That is when we learn Connor has only been released from prison not long ago. As the two talk, Jock warns him that although he is now out of prison, if Connor gets into trouble again, there will be no mercy. Connor insists that what happened in the past was not intentional and that he has no desire to go back to jail. Days later, while walking along the beach, Connor calls Marilyn and tells her he longs to see her again. Although the woman shares the same feeling, she tells him she is currently with her stepdaughter and they are waiting for her husband to return home. After she ends the call, Connor decides to stay at the beach. However, a police officer who recognizes him approaches him and tells him to go home before the park closes, as he still looks suspicious. The next day at the library, we are introduced to Kim, another woman who works there. As she and Connor start chatting, it's clear she is also interested in him. She even agrees to join Connor during his routine jogs. But while they are talking, Marilyn arrives with her stepdaughter, Astrid. Connor quickly excuses himself from Kim and goes up to Marilyn. Astrid asks for a specific type of book, and Connor directs her to the lower floor. Just then, Astrid receives a phone call and steps aside. Marilyn decides to follow Connor to the lower floor. While Connor is searching among the shelves, Marilyn suddenly approaches him and kisses him. Connor initially hesitates as he tells her Astrid can walk in on them, but when Marilyn assures him they are safe for the moment, Connor gives in. This marks the beginning of their relationship. A few days later, Connor meets up with Marilyn by the beach as the two spend more intimate time together. When they talk, Marilyn opens up about her life. She tells Connor she lives in constant fear because her husband always abuses her at home, even over small issues. When Connor suggests going to the police, Marilyn says it would be useless. According to her, her husband is wealthy, powerful, and often away on business. She also tells Connor that since their marriage, her husband has never shown her any affection and prefers to stay with other women when he goes on business trips, leaving her always feeling lonely and neglected. She asks Connor about his past. Connor tells her that 2 years earlier, he got into a fight at a club while drunk and ended up pushing a man who fell and lapsed into a coma and never made it out alive. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. After his release, he started working at the library to rebuild his life. After their conversation, Marilyn reluctantly returns home, but assures Connor she will come to him whenever she needs him. But for several days, she didn't call, and this made him feel lonely. Until one morning, while Connor is out jogging, Marilyn calls and asks to meet. By the time they meet, Connor notices she looks distressed, clearly hurt again by her husband. This makes Connor furious. Marilyn tells him not to worry, as she reassures him that being with him gives her happiness she never gets at home.
I'm so happy you're here.
She takes Connor to one of her husband's secluded farmhouses, where the two share a passionate time together. Several weeks later, as Connor and Kim are heading back to the library, they run into Marilyn, Astrid, and her boyfriend, Jared. Although the two only exchanged a few words, Marilyn clearly feels jealous seeing Connor with Kim. A few days later, while out on his jog, Connor gets a call from Marilyn again. This time, she sounds terrified. Connor immediately understands that her husband has hurt her again. Filled with anger, he tells Marilyn that if her husband were gone, she would be free and they could be together. To his surprise, Marilyn agrees, as she tells him her life would be much better if her husband were dead. When they meet the next day at the farmhouse, Marilyn tells him that she and her stepdaughter will be away for a few days, leaving her husband alone at home. She even tells Connor there are no security cameras or alarms in the house. However, she warns Connor that her husband always keeps a gun with him. Connor is surprised by how detailed her plan is and questions her intentions, suspecting she might just want her husband's money. But Marilyn assures him that her husband's wealth will go to his daughter anyway, according to his will. After giving the idea a deep thought, Connor decides to take the risk. They finalize everything and share one last moment together. However, Connor tells Marilyn not to call him anymore and only to send coded messages if absolutely necessary. When Connor gets home, he finds Jock and the other police officer waiting for him. They tell him there have been several thefts in the town and he is a suspect. Connor denies any involvement. The officers warn him to always keep his phone on and avoid trouble. Eventually that night, Connor carries out his plan. He sneaks into Marilyn's house wearing a mask to avoid being recognized, but when he enters the bedroom, he doesn't find Richard. Instead, he only finds his gun under the pillow. Left frustrated by the failed mission, Connor goes downstairs and is about to leave when he hears a voice. When he looks back, it is Richard. The two come face to face and a struggle immediately breaks out. Richard manages to push into the bedroom as he grabs his gun and aims it at Connor, nearly killing him. At that exact moment, someone attacks Richard from behind and kills him. This affords Connor time to quickly seize the gun and turn to the attacker, only to find it is Jared, Astrid's boyfriend. This leaves him in deep shock. Jared reveals that Astrid had told him about her father having very expensive items at home. At that moment, Connor begins to suspect that Marilyn and Astrid have been manipulating him all along. The thought enrages him. Not wanting to leave any witness behind, Connor kills Jared and places the gun in Richard's hand before escaping. Back at home, Connor is overwhelmed with stress and guilt. That is when Marilyn calls him to express concern for his safety. Feeling deceived and used, Connor angrily confronts Marilyn over the phone. He accuses her of using him to get rid of her husband and take his wealth. She denies it and tries to tell him she only wants to be with him. Not knowing what to believe, Connor tells her not to call him for the next few days until things die down. By the next day, as Connor meets with Jock for their regular meetup, the officer tells him about Richard's death and that the police now think Jared has been responsible all along for the thefts. This comes as a big relief for Connor. As time passes, he starts to return to his routine. However, his mind continues to be troubled, until one day when Marilyn sends him a coded text about books. But as soon as Connor steps out of his house, the police surround him. Jock tells Connor his fingerprints were found on Richard's body, and they need to take him in. As Jock moves to arrest him, Connor lunges at him and runs toward the beach. The police chase him down to the shore. When they catch up, Connor is left surprised they located him so quickly. That is when Jock reveals that a woman had tipped them off. It is finally confirmed that Marilyn had actually used him because of his past history and has betrayed him. Just then, his phone rings again. Although Jock tells him to just surrender, Connor doesn't see the need to live anymore. Just as he reaches for his phone, the officers open fire and kill him on the spot. As the movie ends, we see Marilyn enjoying her life with Astrid. That is when we see the final twist, as we learn they were secretly lovers and together they had planned everything from the beginning so they could use Connor as a pawn to eliminate Richard. Connor was an ex-convict looking for redemption who thought he found love with an abused older woman. But she wasn't a victim seeking rescue. She was a manipulator using his past, his loneliness, and his desire to protect her as weapons. He killed for her and died believing she cared. Sometimes the most dangerous traps aren't set with violence, but with intimacy. And sometimes the person who makes you feel alive is the one who's been planning your death all along.